Good afternoon, everyone. If I can call this meeting to order, we'll turn first to the approval of minutes. Do I have a motion, please?
Motion made.
Second? In favor? Opposed? Thank you. Linda, to go quickly to the committee work plan, and then we'll get into the substance of the meeting.
Thank you, Jay. Just quickly, given the amount that was on the agenda for today, we've moved the stations discussion until next month, and we're deferring the discussion we were going to have on SBS until there's more to share with the board other than just providing information without a strategic focus. So we'll come back on that as well.
Okay. The first item of business, and I think Michael and Bill have handed out a document. We said a couple months ago that we recognized the complexities around the East Side Access Project, the pressures in particular on the schedule that we were feeling on that project, and the board had instructed, or this committee had instructed, the capital construction company to continue to report back to this committee on a monthly basis to be able to understand the manner in which we're dealing with the risks that are out there and the steps that are being taken in an effort to be able to mitigate those risks. And I think, Michael, it's with that introduction, which I hope is accurate, the floor is yours.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure that I'm going to reiterate something, that how complex the scope of work for the East Side Access is, and just the when we look at it, we actually seen the number of miles of track and cables and switches and CILs and everything else that makes it almost, in effect, as a fourth largest railroad behind Long Island Railroad, Metro North, and New Jersey Transit, if we were to do it as a separate thing. With that being said, we have, and I try to separate the risks in our analysis into two separate things. One has to do with the review of risks and how we can actually mitigate that. And then the second part, I'm looking at the East Side Access in the Manhattan contracts and what are the risks and the issues there. Talking about the risk of delay, we are now in the midst of a draft. We are actually doing a risk review of schedule and identify a number of risks that, if not mitigated, may lead to delays. And what we are trying to do, and we will be briefing the CPOC in its entirety when we're completing this exercise in April. But some of the recent actions have to do with the fact that we have already been able to have ways to adjust the schedule to allow second and third shifts on portion where multiple contracts are able to work and sharing the tunnel access, and this is for the track installation. We are looking at opportunities to work multiple shifts for other work elements. Yet there we are exploring and looking at cost versus schedule, and that's sometimes having more shifts increases costs and yes, reduces schedule, but the cost is also an issue. So we have to balance that. One of the issues that we're having, and this is we have to deal with, is access. And in order to do that, we are developing, in the midst of finishing development, of a 4D model. And this is in order to determine if there is adequate access to in the tunnel for all the concurring activities. So it's a three-dimensional plus the time. So as it moves, we want to see if we can fit more activities and how many access points we need. So that's going to be finished this month, so we expect to come back to you in April. Then what we did in February, we did an outreach for the industry, and we have done that in order to be able to evaluate if our contract schedule and other terms are adequate, and that's something that is important. So the RFP procurement process will allow us to evaluate that. So we are basically talking to the industry to determine that. And last but not least, we started a peer review of testing and commissioning requirements. Remember, Long Island Railroad is the first project in 100 years, so they've not done much commissioning and testing. So the question is, what exactly are we doing? Do we need belts and suspenders? Can we live only with the belt and not the suspender? For the moment, we are in the midst of evaluating that. We need to have a right balance in testing, and that's something that we've been looking at. Coming back to Manhattan, and this is something that we have talked last time when I reported that we fell back 42 days out of our contingency, not the schedule, but the contingency. And all I can report at this point is that the contractor is continue to work 6 days a week, 3 shifts. And they're making they're working at multiple locations at once. There is no additional loss of anything on schedule and contingency, but we have not been able to report any recovery yet. I'm hoping that as things are going forward with the new management that they put in place, that will yield results that will allow us to recover some of the lost contingency. At this point, I cannot actually report that. Yet I can tell you that the work that is going on right there, for whoever of you have been there in the past would be amazed to the progress that has been made. The waterproofing and formwork has begun in the westbound cavern, with concrete placement to start in April, as well as East Cavern that will follow a month later. We started to place concrete in the tail tracks, in the inverts. So again, these are. I just wanted to make a point that we're working in different locations in order to achieve that. However, in some places we're not able to work concurrently. Just not enough access. We are now working on the possibility of providing access via one of the escalator wells that we try to bring stuff through the Metro North into the medicine yards and take it down into the cavern a different way. And this is something that we're exploring right now. The muck removal, something that was a real problem for us, is about 88% done by now. So we have about 12%, and we expect to be finished in April. And this is for the residual muck, right? It's not something that we create now, because that we remove as we go along, but we had large quantities residing in our cavern that we had to remove, so they will be done. As I said before, we have now new management that the contractor brought on board. They are very serious, very senior people. The gentleman leading the charge is really one of the top construction managers in the region and in the country. And they are working with us now in a closer collaboration. It means they do not poo-poo what we say. We expect to have a meeting at the highest level, the president of Drogados meeting with Jay sometime in April, to just make sure that everyone at all levels, they get the proper message that we need a lot of work done, and that we expect to, although there are challenges in both in the schedule that we have, that we will meet these challenges. That's about it.
Discussion?
The article in today's Newsday about East Side Access continues to refer to a difference of opinion between MTA Capital Construction and the feds in relation to the completion date. We still have ours, and it's still in the book as the end of 2016. They have made it clear that they do not believe that, and they believe it will be 2018. I was wondering the basis for the difference of opinion, and whether or not you think that is
They also report, I think, a $8.1 billion
Yes.
tax.
But we're only talking about schedule.
Let me just react to that for a moment. When we presented, I presented actually in July of 2009, the update, I presented, in effect, boundaries. And I said, okay, if the moon, the sun, and the earth lined up exactly properly, we will have we'll be able to finish at a certain date and with a certain budget. And then I said, if everything else goes wrong, it was actually the schedule matched the FTA as well as the budget. So there are two boundaries, and we have said at the time that we are picking a number that we feel confident that we can manage it, both in terms of schedule and budget, and it's still there. So they are really showing the upper boundary of that, and it's their prerogative to do that, I guess. But we have had that disagreement with them from day one. Yet we did present a boundary when we were presenting our budget that we're going to be managing at and schedule. So we continue to do that.
How much of the difference between the 2016 date and the 2018 date is in our control? The reason I'm saying that is obviously the ability of the contractor to finish the job, or contractors, to finish the job by the end of 2016 or earlier than that, that is somewhat in their control, but to some degree it is in our control relating to our management of the contractor and whatever frustration, for lack of a better term, we show with the contractor for not meeting the appropriate date. So that's the point I was trying to make, is how much of that is actually in our control.
Look, clearly we are working with the contractor, and we are working different ways, including we try to provide them, if possible, with an incentive to do the work, and they also have to agree that that's a good thing for them. Yet I will say to you that at this point the contractors are actually are working with us to try to meet our deadline, but there are many other factors involved, and that will have to, it's the Amtrak factors, is the force account factor, is the weather factor sometimes, because we do work in an open environment in Queens that actually. So there are many things. Yet I think that at this point we are faced with a challenging schedule, but we believe that we will be able to meet that.
Okay. Thank you.
I would offer the following thought on this, which is, the schedule for this project developed, as Michael said, July 2009, actually predated my arrival. But I feel very strongly it's easy to move schedules back,
right,
and hard to manage the schedules.
Right.
I think it is, and what my comments to Michael and Bill and Alan have been, we need to manage to this schedule right now. We need to show we're taking all steps to be able to deal with that schedule. We should not take lightly any movement from that schedule that is there. And I would say that I think the team has accepted that challenge in doing it. Would I want to bet the rent? Probably not. I think there are significant risks as have been identified here. But the responsibility is to continue to try to manage to that schedule and to really work to it and to turn on every stone and to try to find ways to be able to mitigate the issues that come up. And I would bet we'd be having exactly the same conversation if we moved the schedule to 2018.
Right. Because
this project is so complex. So the foot has to, be on the pedal of being able to do this. I have also discussed the difference in dates with the federal government. I think we've all we haven't argued with their prognosis. And as I've said to the FDA administrator recently, I said my hope is I can just prove you wrong and beat that. At this moment, right now, we haven't yet done that, so I don't want to stand up too much on a chair and do that. I would suggest for this committee that we continue month after month in public session and very openly discussing how we're doing it, getting our arms around some of the issues that have been identified here. And I think it becomes a critically important part of what we are trying to do. as the oversight committee of this project. Not every piece, but the pieces that we know are really jeopardizing or at risk of jeopardizing our ability to be able to deliver a project to the schedule and to the budget that have been laid out.
Is your assumption the change in management at the contractor level is related to keeping to the current schedule?
Absolutely. I think that the change in management showed an incredible change in approach, the organization, the way work is prosecuted is totally different. And we are really happy to see this gentleman doing the job. He's doing a super job at this point. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Jim?
Michael, on that
Yeah.
point, it sounded as though the new management sort of parachuted in. Senior guys, are they there for the long haul, or are they just coming in to sort of right the ship and to be replaced by somebody else?
Let me just give you a little background. I met with the president of Drogados in September of 2010, in which I have been had very harsh evaluation of their performance. At which point he committed to bring on board a senior manager. It took them basically October, November, December, about 4 months to recruit this gentleman. It's no secret he was a senior guy at Skanska, and he made the move, and he is here for the long haul. He's not a flash in a pan. I can't guarantee you that, but that is my impression, okay?
Well, if his lease expires in December 16, we're okay. Not if it expires in 2018.
He's local. He's a New Yorker.
Okay. Anything else on this project right now? Michael, did you speak at the earlier committee meetings about the groundbreaking that
Yes,
we did?
yes, we did.
So I will leave it at that. It really was an extraordinary day, and I was glad to be able to participate in that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The rest of this meeting is largely devoted to a series of items on the bus side of the House. The first one, which Sunil will speak to, I think has as much strategic importance for our organization as any project that we are doing right now. And I'm very proud of what Sunil and the folks in buses have done to be able to do this. I think they've done something that's terrific. And it really does have the potential to change the nature of the way that people perceive our bus service and utilize our bus service. The floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Sunil Nair. I am the project manager of the Bus Customer Information Systems Initiative, and I'll talk about the project. Next slide. I'll talk about a particular pilot that we launched that talked about real-time next bus information, pilot details, and of course what are our plans ahead in terms of deploying it to the rest of the city. I'm happy to state that we launched a real-time bus customer information systems pilot on time and on schedule on the B63 route in Brooklyn on 30 buses on February 1st of 2011. I have to say it was received very favorably by all of our customers, the riding public as well as external application developers who tended to share our data that we are sending to them. Of course, going forward, what we do is work on the pilot so that the pilot goes smoothly, and in parallel work with the wider rollout across the city itself. The pilot, it had features by which our riding customers could send us feedback. There were email-based mechanisms by which our customers could send us feedback. We average about 1 or 2 pieces of feedback on a daily basis. Some of the feedback is that, Georgia said, let's do it on the B61 route, which is a sort of a route that's next to the B63 itself. Gene has said, well, I've bookmarked it on my Android phone and he uses it. Patrick has said this is one of the more important and significant improvements the MTA has introduced. Molly has essentially gone ahead and said it's changed her life. Andy has said that it's the best thing in years from the MTA, but essentially it's more buses, please. When are we doing it for the rest of the routes? In addition to our riding customers being enthused by what next bus information can give them, we have opened up location data to external application developers so that they can share the data that we are using and sort of produce new applications. A fairly innovative enterprising external application developer has gone ahead and developed an interactive phone application whereby you can call a particular number and find out your next bus arrivals. A company called NextBus has gone ahead and produced time-based predictions sitting on top of our data. And of course, there's a bunch of iPhone and Android applications that have been put out to the marketplace. You can actually go to the Apple Store and download one of these iPhone applications for your use. Of course, we prefer that you use our application, but then, it's all out there. And most of it is for free, by the way. Of course, in addition to external application developers, MTA staff has also been getting their own ideas for additional improvements of the data. Operations planning has said that they plan to use the schedule data versus the real-time data to improve their wait assessment analysis. Road operations in Department of Buses has said, well, why don't you give us the exact same interface that we have given to our customers? We will look at instances of bus bunching, that is places where buses are in close proximity and does not serve well for our customers. So we will find those instances and we can work with road operations to make sure those instances have been minimized so that our customers get more frequent service. Now I'll talk about the exact details of the pilot itself. There are 5 ways by which our customers can get to NextBus information, ranging from the web right up to storefront windows. I'll actually walk through each of these in detail. With respect to the web, you can go to a web browser and bring up the pilot site on your web browser. So essentially, you'll be confronted with the route itself with multiple buses moving in real time across the route. If you sort of zoom down, it's actually an interactive web map. So if you zoom down into the web map, you can either search by an intersection or a unique identifier assigned to each bus stop along the route. So the moment you search by those parameters, you essentially get buses that are in close proximity to that particular place. Of course, if you zoom further down and if you click on a particular stop, you can essentially find out all of the buses that are served at that particular stop. So you can find out, your next bus is 1 stop away, or your second bus is half a mile away, and so on. Another mode of access is a smartphone-based mobile web access, which is essentially the same thing as before, but a pared-down version of what you saw so that it fits on your smartphone, it loads up faster. You can essentially search by the same set of parameters, intersection and stop identifier. Well, for those of us who do not have smartphones, I do not have one. This is one of my favorite access methods by which I can find out the next bus. You have you have these guide rides or canisters installed at each of these bus stops, which we have embellished to call attention to additional details of the pilot itself. So now you're telling our customer to sort of text to the MTA with a space and a unique identifier of that particular stop to a particular number. So if you do that, which is sort of the left-hand side screen, if you do that, you essentially get all of your next bus arrivals pertinent to that stop on your screen, sent back by the MTA in under a minute back to that cell phone. Yeah.
What is there on each bus that's running on that route that is transmitting to the web?
Great question. Essentially, we are building on top of existing equipment and infrastructure that we would deploy as part of our smart card project. So all we are doing on top of that is, in addition to putting all the stuff for the smart card project, we are putting an enhanced GPS location device, which is called a GPS dead reckoning unit, which essentially transmits really accurate location information. So all of the rest, the wireless infrastructure, all of the smart card computers and all that is already on the bus. And it sends it to a central server that sort of collates all of this information. Yeah, I should have said that before, but yeah, definitely. We have also noticed that our smartphone-based customers are using what are called quick response codes or 2-dimensional barcodes in a lot of cases. So what we have done is we have gone ahead and piloted this particular concept on the B63 route. So every guided ride or canister at a bus stop essentially has a quick response code embedded within the printed material, which customers can sort of, scan with their smartphones and be taken to the website directly. So they do not even have to remember a website at this point. In addition, we are also working with, in a demonstration capacity, we're working with storefront owners along the B63 route to sort of put LCD displays that show you next bus information at about 5 locations along the route. So this is a sort of a do-it-yourself model whereby storefront owners can follow a simple set of instructions, put up a little laptop that shows next bus information so that passengers can make a real-time decision, should I step in for a cup of coffee, let's say, or should I continue waiting for my next bus because it's a stop away. With respect to usage, we've seen some very favorable usage statistics across these 3 modes, the website, the mobile, and the text mode. We're seeing a little upwards of about 1,600 specific requests for information across these modes. Considering that the B63 has a daily ridership of approximately 11,500, which translates to about 15% of uptake with respect to all of these modes for finding out your next bus. Of course, what are our plans for taking this forward and deploying it to the larger scale? One of the first things is that we have to plan completely for success. The first piece that I would say is full engagement across all of our stakeholders, across the MTA as well as its agencies. We are following a fairly rigorous project management methodology defined under the Intelligent Transportation Systems-based systems engineering process that allows us to clearly define the project in terms of phases and deliverables at the end of every phase. And it's a very rigorous process under the ITS methodology. And I'm happy to say that one of the first sort of large pieces that come as part of the methodology is creating a concept of operations itself, which sort of envisage what your landscape should be. So we've completed that. It was received very well by the MTA and all of our, some of our agencies across the board. We haven't sent it out to all of the agencies, which we'll slowly do in a phased manner at this time. At this point, the team remains completely committed to the mantra of sharing location data using open data and open standards across multiple interfaces that we plan to employ. Of course, again, I would say the most important piece is stakeholder engagement, and openness is the key here. What we have done is we've worked very closely with all of the agencies in defining their requirements, understanding their requirements, documenting it, and once documented, we've sort of gone back and sort of vetted and made sure that this is what we've understood from all of those discussions, multiple discussions. We plan to come back to the board on a regular basis and update you on the progress with respect to this project itself. And of course, the broader community, we have started talking to the PCAs, the Permanent Citizens Advisory Council, the Strap Hangers campaign, the external application developers community, and essentially using feedback that we have got as part of the pilot in sort of refining our process and making sure that we deliver the best process going for best product going forward. Plans for 2011, we plan to deploy this to all buses in Staten Island, including the express bus routes on Staten Island before the end of this year. Plans for 2012, we plan to refine and hone our procurement and production processes so that we are in an effective position to deploy this across all of the buses under the MTA during 2012 and the early part of 2013. That's
Discussion.
2 questions, if I may. First, what do you do in multilingual constituencies?
That's a great question. With respect to instructions at the bus stop itself, we have it translated according to the linguistic percentages that live in that particular place. So, for example, on the B63 route, we have it translated to English. We have it translated to Spanish. So, people who sort of read Spanish would essentially follow the same set of instructions as anybody else who reads English. So, we might have to do additional surveys of routes in Staten Island where we might have to tailor the guide or ride to explicitly bring out the fact that it is, in that particular language.
But what do you do, for example, if you have a Spanish constituency or Spanish language constituency in, say, the Bronx, where they would like to use their smartphones or what have you? Are you going to be able to provide some service for them in that regard?
Well, this is more of a self-service channel type next bus information. So if they have a smartphone or if they have a text-based cell phone, they should be able to access next bus information without any issues.
In what language?
You mean to say on the device itself?
Yeah.
For the pilot, we have done it in English.
All I'm saying is I understand the challenge. I understand it's an enormous problem. I'd like to call it to your attention to
That's fair.
give it some thought.
That's fair.
The second question I have for you is, you have in mind communication with various constituencies. May I recommend that at some point in time you communicate with the various community boards in the City of New York to get the information to them so that they understand where you are, where you're going, and what you want to achieve?
That's fair. For the pilot, just answering that particular question, for the pilot, we did talk very specifically to the community boards in Brooklyn. So I'm assuming, we'll sort of scale that for the wider deployment. Definitely.
Alan?
Just want to understand what the commitment is vis-a-vis Staten Island by the end of 2000.
I thought you'd notice that one was very clear.
I just wanted to hear it again. What's going to happen by the end of 2011?
What's going to happen by the end of 2011, and I'm working hard to make sure it happens, is to deploy bus CIS in the exact same capacity as we demonstrated on the pilot across all bus routes, including the express bus route.
Every single one?
Every single one. Yeah, we're working towards that at this point.
We call it the Alan Capelli program. Now, look, the serious point here is I think we wanted to be able to rapidly expand from what we've done. No question that Staten Island being the most bus-dependent borough in doing this, but also giving us the opportunity to look at both local buses and express buses in the way that we were doing it. The beauty of the process that Sunil has laid out is that we're not tied to the development of a lot of fixed infrastructure. It's putting information on buses, but frankly, it's taking advantage of the infrastructure that every person is now carrying with them. 95% or something like that of people have a cell phone in some way. It doesn't have to be the latest cell phone, and what the beauty of this is really it's any cell phone, and it's really taking advantage of that infrastructure. Getting the fixed infrastructure out would be a much longer process, and I think we wouldn't want to hold it back to be able to do that. Doreen?
We heard for so many months that it was very, very difficult to institute this type of system on New York City buses, and we heard everything from satellites didn't work because of the buildings, and what's changed? What's made it possible for this to happen now without going to an expensive outside source?
Let me give one answer, and then Sunil's going to be able to give you the more detailed answer. But I think one of the things that's actually been incredibly impressive about this, from my perspective, is that we've hired a few people into our organization who have been working hand in hand with the bus division together. Sunil didn't come here with a real knowledge of buses. Equally, the people in the bus division didn't have a real knowledge of some of what might have been possible in being able to do that. I've never attended anything at MTA that was more impressive actually than going out to Gleason Depot and seeing both parties working together to be able to do that. There's a technical answer to what's made it happen, but I actually think that a large part of what's made it happen has been the collaboration in a way that I don't know that we were able to achieve before, and I think that's a credit, frankly, to everybody who's been involved in this. It really has been a very, very powerful collaboration in doing that, and we knew what we needed to be able to break down and be able to deal with that. Do you want to just talk about enhanced GPS and the way that you've been doing
James.
this?
Yeah. Doreen, one of the more important sort of additions that we have done is enhanced location information. So in previous attempts, I would say 4 or 5 years back, we've had GPS issues within Manhattan itself. Now I feel that technology has reached a stage where even if you do not have GPS signals for a short period of time, circuitry and technology on board the GPS device itself can sort of predict with reasonable accuracy that your bus is at this particular location in case it does not get your satellite signal. So in addition to the stakeholder involvement that Jay mentioned, I would say the technology has also significantly changed over the last year, 2 years.
I know we were dealing with clever devices on a pilot on 34th Street, I think it was.
Correct.
And one of the inhibiting factors was the cost per bus. What is the cost per bus approximately of taking this in-house and doing it? Or do we know that yet?
We do.
Say? Or?
Well, our estimate is that we are saving on the order of 70% right now. And I've actually, Michael Furman and Sunil have literally come into my office with equipment, and I say, where do you get this? And they say, we're literally buying it off the internet. This is the point about this is that we are using almost stock equipment right now that is available. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to do anything that's different than what's out there. We're actually using what is out there and figuring out how to be able to put it onto the bus. And I think that's again, I'm incredibly proud of what we've been able to do on this because I think that really we've shown ingenuity. We've shown a degree to work with a degree of alacrity that sometimes escapes us in being able to do this. And we've really brought together, I think, both the technological capability combined with our operational skills that are so strong into a way that we're figuring it out. Now, there have been some bumps along the way, and I think that's the other part about this is that the collaboration that's been there has helped to get past the bumps that have been along the way. I think in some of the instances that you're referring to, the bumps have turned into contractual difficulties rather than collaboration, right? I mean, I think I think that would be perhaps a gentle way of saying some of what's actually happened, and I think I think we've avoided that this time in doing it. Sunil, do you want to add to that? I mean,
I think you said it all. I mean. Yeah, the only thing that I would add is, like I mentioned before, the team is very committed to the development of open data, that is sharing data across the developer community, as well as open standards. So essentially, we are not stuck to a particular manufacturer of a device, and we're not bound by their sort of contractual obligations because we can go to the marketplace, say that, as long as your device satisfies the following set of criteria, pop it into your bus. Of course, we'll have to pay installation and maintenance charges, but that's all. That's all you need to do, and it should work once you pop it into the bus. So, yeah, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I just like to comment that assuming that we're able to do this, technology. Assuming that we're able to get this done, and it sounds, I don't think that you would make the commitment as strongly as you have without reasonable certainty of it. This is not only good news for the passenger who's trying to get information about what's taking place, but it's good news for us as the overseers of the system in that we'll be able to really have a sense of what's going on out there on each line, on each bus that's running, and helping us to respond to complaints about buses stacking, buses passing stops and not stopping because they're looking to make up time, and so forth, with real hard data. And I mean, that's just such a great thing for us in terms of being able to manage the system. So, bravo. Thank you.
Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, this is really terrific. This is on the order of the countdown clocks in the subways. Riders feel much more empowered when they have information about their trip. They feel an affinity for their route. This is just so great. And this one can be accessed in a variety of ways, either at the stop or with a special app or just on a regular text message basis. This is really fabulous, and Godspeed to getting it expanded to the rest of the system.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Jim, you want to say something?
Ditto that, first of all. But you mentioned the additional empowerment that it gave to the bus operators, us. And I just wondered if there were any specific strategies or approaches that came out of this additional information. In other words, that you'd be able to just give an example of to help in bus bunching, for instance. How was this information enabling you to cut down on that?
Right. The project is in the embryo stage right now, but as Jay pointed out, the collaboration between us, Road Operation Tech Services, and Sunil, we're very excited to pursue that. As he spoke earlier, bus bunching is the topic of the day now, where we could take that information and respond to it much more quickly and more specifically and accurately than we do now.
One of the experiences I've had in some other locations was that the process of actually creating this type of information felt very divorced from the use of operations to be able to do it. It may well have created a benefit for the customer, but operations still was locked into their way of being able to do it. I think what you're seeing here is an openness to looking at this. I think what Darrell is saying is we're going to try and figure out how to be able to do that. But information is power. The ability of road operations to be able to say to a bus, I want you to run ahead, or I want you to hold back, or short turn a bus, is an incredibly powerful piece of doing it. I expect that we've got a lot to learn about doing that. We've been running the bus system without anywhere near that kind of information in our hands, and I expect that we'll have a lot to learn in the way that we're doing it. But you can see the power that this creates in doing it, and what I've been encouraged about is both the road operations and ops planning actually immediately saying, gee, we think this is benefit for us, and let's figure out how to be able to use it, which is great. We've got, we should come back, and I think much more through the bus committee as opposed to through. I think CPOC should be following the progress of the project so we can ensure that we do make the end of 2011, for example. I think the bus committee should be following the utilization of this both as it affects the customer and in the way that we're using it on the operational basis of running the bus system. And I think that's the division that you'll see on a going forward basis.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it was really kind of an indirect way of saying that I think at the operational level, it's going to have to be a pedal on the metal, pretty much, as a standard over there to make sure that split doesn't occur and that it just helps the customer, but it gives the customer bad news. We want to have the good news being that things get better too.
Right. Chuck?
Just one further comment. At least one city agency currently, and I believe another one, are using even less sophisticated equipment in terms of tracking their vehicles, redeploying them, and the like. And it has turned out to be a significant advantage to them. And I congratulate you. It's a great idea. Let's see if we can get some Spanish language and other languages factored in, if we can, down the road.
Yep,
okay.
Definitely.
Other comments? Again, our focus now will be on achieving a wider rollout of this, continuing to mine the benefits that do come from it, assisting and working with the development community so that they can get application rolled out in a way that will continue to assist customers in doing this. Fundamentally, the potential of this is to completely redefine our relationship to the bus system. It moves it away from show up and wait to show up when I know a bus is going to be there. We run our railroads that way because they run on a fixed right-of-way, and we can run them to a schedule, and this gives us the potential opportunity to be able to run our bus system in much that same way. And that is usually powerful if we can succeed at being able to do that. And I really genuinely believe we're on the cusp of showing that. So, Sunil, thank you to Michael and to the whole team at Buses. As I say, I think it's really terrific.
Thank you.
The chair should know what's next, but he doesn't. Bus test fleets. Okay. So, Darrell, you're doing this one with Henry? I think you have a separate handout that was given out on this, right? Somewhere?
Did we?
It's at the back of the one on East Side Access.
All right, bus test fleets. Okay, our goals. The current capital cycle requires that we procure approximately 2,300 buses. So to achieve that, we found it advantageous to try to test as many fleets and manufacturers as possible. different bus types, fleets, and manufacturers. And the key areas that we would be looking at is reliability, which is MDBF, fuel economy, the ability to maintain the bus, vendor support, and the manufacturer's ability to deliver the product timely with quality. Next slide. Our basic implementation scheme is that we're going to procure 7 test fleets of 90 buses each. 3 different types of standard buses that are clean diesel, low-floor buses, in a head-to-head comparison, in which we're going to take 3 depots and put, each one of these fleets will be 90 buses. So what we're going to do is take 3 of these fleets, put 30 buses of each in 3 different depots. Is that right, Henry?
Correct.
And what is that going to get us?
We'll have 90 buses in Staten Island, 30 from each manufacturer, 90 buses in Brooklyn, 30 from each manufacturer, and 90 buses in Queens, 30 from each manufacturer. That will give me different duty cycles, and it will give us real good information for the future procurement, which will be a competitive bid in the future.
Okay. And to add, we're going to have 2 articulated fleets, 2 60-foot articulated fleets, and those will be done in solo comparisons, and 1 commuter coach fleet. I would like to speak to the turbine bus later in the presentation, but we're actively exploring different propulsion systems in a way to reduce carbon footprint and overall life cycle cost. Next. What we have here is NOVA. This project was awarded at the end of last year. Currently, we're happy to say that we've have 3 buses that have been delivered to us thus far. They're in the pre-inspection period right now. This is a low-floor bus, 40-foot. Currently, they make the articulated buses that you see on the SBS. Next slide. Next bus is Daimler, a.k.a. Orion. This bus is expected to be awarded this month. The bus, if that works for us, we should have the buses delivered by the end of the year. Next slide. New Flyer. This is also expected to be awarded this month. First bus is expected to be delivered in July with an ending of December. Just a little bit about New Flyer. New Flyer is the manufacturer of the current articulated buses, with the exception of the SBS. So this is the first time we're entering into an agreement with New Flyer on standard buses. Next slide. And what we have is our SBS fleet, which is made by Nova. The project was awarded back in 2009. The results have been very impressive with this bus. The infant MDBF results compared to the infant results of the New Flyer has been extremely good. I think we've doubled that amount. Yeah. Fuel economy is up 25% versus the rest of the articulated fleet. And with any luck, we're looking to proceed with a procurement of 328 of these buses in the near future. And that would replace our current 2000 fleet and all of the residual 1998 fleet. Next slide. Here we have the New Flyer fleet. We're looking to get board approval in June. Currently, the bus is on the shaker table. If it, in fact, passes the shaker table, we look to enter an agreement with New Flyer. Like I said before, New Flyer is the manufacturer of the current Arctic fleet that we have in the Bronx and Manhattan. Henry, would you give us an update on the shaker table and just let the folk know what's that about?
This will be our first low-floor articulated bus purchase from New Flyer. The bus is on the shaker table. It was up there a week ago. They've had issues. They've came up with fixes for them. They implemented the fixes, and the bus is back on the shaker table. So this bus has unique changes as the previous buses. They reduced the weight of the bus by 2 tons, and the fixes that they've added to date has been 600 pounds. So the bus is still a lot lighter, and the test is moving forward.
Just for everyone to know, the shaker table was the test we used to test structural integrity. Sorry, Andrew?
I seem to recall a problem with New Flyer taking care of our current non-SBS articulated buses. That came up at several meetings. They weren't making good on contract issues. Has all of that been resolved, that we're now considering buying a whole new fleet of them from them?
Yes, Andrew, all those issues have been resolved. There's been a change in the leadership of New Flyer, and we've had a settlement agreement with them, and they've stepped up and repaired the structure on every single New Flyer Arctic we have.
Yeah, that's currently happening. We're almost completed with that, Andrew. Okay. Okay. To satisfy our commuter coach needs, we're looking at Prevost. We've never bought a bus from Prevost before, not the commuter coach. The only vendor that we've dealt with in the past has been MCI, so we're excited to drum up some competition. The project was awarded in January of this year. The pilot is expected to be delivered in July, with the last bus being early next year, end of this year, early next year. Next slide. As I spoke before, we were very excited about this new technology bus design line. It's a turbine bus. I'm quite sure many of you have seen this bus. We ran them in Manhattan. Unfortunately, design line could not, deliver to prime time. They've tried several iterations of their propulsion system. We've worked with them constantly. However, it didn't work out, so we recently ceased and desist that contract. And the good story is it proved and validated our test and evaluation process, and we were able to retrieve $4.2 million on that.
Shame, because Joe, when Joe was here, he had us go and ride these things, and he was so excited. There was no lurch to this bus whatsoever. It started really smoothly. It was.
You felt like you were floating.
Right.
It's a shame.
On flat grounds, it was fine.
On flat grounds. So the issue was the rutted streets. The undercarriage was
no. It was the propulsion power.
Okay. Okay.
The turbine was the propulsion system. The turbine was too small to handle our heat and AC needs, so they upgraded it to a larger one. And the larger one kept failing. It was being overhauled every 300 hours.
Oh.
That's unacceptable.
Oh, yeah.
We couldn't live with that. But it was a successful test, though. It did prove that you can have hybrid components, which are off-the-shelf motors, at a fraction of the cost of other hybrid technologies.
Okay, so I noticed that the tests that you're doing of some of these new fleets are in Brooklyn, Queens, and Staten Island, nothing in Manhattan, where we have the most traffic and the most potholes, dare I say. How come we're not running any?
The 90 Nova Arctics are being tested in Manhattan and the Bronx.
What routes are you testing those on?
15 and the BX12.
Okay.
Where are they in the Bronx?
SBS.
Where are they in the Bronx?
Primarily on the SBS, on the BX12.
We're not giving up on turbine buses. What we're saying is that this one has not worked right now. I think the authority has, maybe for many good reasons, had a risk-averse approach in terms of buses. I think what Darrell and Henry are showing you is a stepwise process of trying to open that up, get more competition into the environment. As part of that, I think we also have to recognize when something's not quite working right, give the manufacturer an opportunity to cure and go back and think further about it, and we're not closing our eyes to it. It was. All of us took a ride on the bus. It was sweet. But I don't think it will be very sweet if it obviously doesn't stand up to what we need to do. So,
yeah, we thought it was a great concept. It just seemed not to be ready for prime time. So our next steps is to award and evaluate all remaining test fleets, continue to solicit participation in the marketplace, apply lessons learned and expand competition on future bus procurements, and explore technologies such as a full electric bus. And that concludes.
Questions, discussion?
Is there a full electric bus out there to use as a starting point?
Yes. Currently, Volvo Trucks is the parent company of Nova Bus. and Nova Bus sent a full bus over to China. They have a partnership with Sunwind, which produces electric buses in China, sorry. They're going to outfit the Nova Bus with the electric propulsion system and then bring it back to the United States. And they're going to slot me with a test bus next year.
Alan?
The 3-borough 90 bus test, are they 90 of the same buses or are they mixed?
Henry, you do it for the head-to-head comparison.
The 90 buses will be split amongst the 3 boroughs. So one depot will have 30 of each manufacturer. They have 90 new buses, but they'll have head-to-head comparison at 3 different
So
manufacturers.
they'll be testing 3 different buses?
Correct.
Okay, and I would just like to dispute Doreen's. Staten Island, I think, continues to be the leader in potholes, so...
With respect, the Bronx claims that privilege.
I think this is a topic we will leave to others. So I think it falls outside the mandate of the MTA unless the potholes are on the bridges. I think the real importance of this is there has been a long and frankly storied history of the MTA not being able to get a lot of competition in the bus marketplace into what we're doing. Whatever you think about what we do, competition is critically important to being able to do it. And I think that what you're seeing here from what Darrell and Henry have presented is an approach to be able to do that. You're also seeing an approach in which manufacturers are saying that if they are qualified to be able to sell to us, they will open more facilities in New York and do things of that nature. And I think it really does, the last thing in the world that we want to have is a discussion about one manufacturer in New York and another manufacturer in some other place. We really want to have discussions about multiple manufacturers in New York and how they're competing to get our orders and get our business and be able to do that. We don't represent on the bus side of the house the same dominance over the industry that we do on the rail side of the house. On the rail side of the house, we're 2 out of every 3 rail cars that are purchased in the United States. On the bus side of the house, it is, clearly still the largest bus system, but there are many more buses being purchased elsewhere. And so I think the reality is that I think what we're seeing here is an effort to be able to ride on technologies that are out there, ride on the basis of things, give manufacturers a risk-averse way of starting to work with us so that they don't end up in a position in which they're losing their shirt as well. And hopefully at the end of this process, in a year or so, that we can look and say we have more than 1 or 2 manufacturers who are building different types of buses for us and allow us to make judgments about what type of bus fleet we would actually like to have. If this works, that's where we should be. And I think it's again, something I think the committee should be watching in terms of the progress of how that's going and our ability to be able to do this so that we can move to the substantial bus replacements that we have scheduled in the latter part of this capital program with a degree of confidence about the manufacturing industry being there to support us.
One
Chuck?
final question, if I may. Has MTA concluded that double-deckers just don't work for places like Manhattan?
We don't have a facility that the bus can fit in. And when we had the test bus, we had to fuel it outside the depot. We had to change tires outside the garage. We had to vacuum the fare box outside the garage. So right now we have no facility to accept a vehicle that big.
Okay. I think the last item, speaking of facilities, is to get an update on our next bus maintenance facility. Fred, are you doing this one? And Fred, not to restrict your presentation, but to let you know that the chair is trying to end this meeting on time.
We'll go quickly. Just as an introduction, within New York City Transit's Capital Program Management Department, we have started to restructure a little bit to conform the organization better for the completion of the current 5-year capital program. And with that, responsibility for the design and construction of bus facilities has moved under the infrastructure group under John O'Grady, which most of you are familiar with. John's in the back. And Sonia J. Singh has taken over as the program manager for that area. So Sonia will be doing the presentation this afternoon. Sonia?
Thank you. Good afternoon. I would like the next slide. I would like to start my presentation for people who haven't seen the old depot. Mother Clara Hill Bus Depot is located between 146th and 147th Street in Manhattan, faces Lenox Avenue. What you see here is the old depot, which was demolished in March 2010. Next slide. All remediation work, soil remediation, asbestos removal, underground storage tanks, all that work has been completed. This is the site as you see today. Next slide. This is what we plan to give back to the Department of Buses in July of 2013. The new Mother Clara Hill Bus Depot. Next slide. This is a design-build project. The duration is 32 months. It was awarded in November 2010 for $214 million. The contractor is Silverite and the consultants STV. It is a consultant construction management by Shaw Environmental. This will be the first depot to be registered under Green Building Council. It will be LEED certified. LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. Some of its sustainable elements include a green roof, water reclamation system, and energy-efficient equipment. The building footprint is approximately 130,000 square feet. It has 3 floors. The first floor for the depot will have provisions for bus fueling, washing, and maintenance work. The second and the third floor will be parking for 150 standard bus equivalent. As a side note, the old depot had parking facilities for 103 bus equivalent. There is no parking on the roof. There is no parking on the streets. There are employee facilities on the mezzanine and part of the third floor. Next slide, please. The risk assessment for this project was completed in February 2010. The risks identified and some of the mitigations highlighted have been incorporated in this project. What I'd like to do is take a few moments and talk about a few of them. This project is a fast-track project. One of the things we are careful of is scope changes. As a proactive measure, during the conceptual design stage, we had all the major stakeholders sign off on the project and its project requirements. Should there be an internal design decision change, which requires us to change the contract documents, we will only implement it with the concurrence of the President and the Senior Vice Presidents of CPM and Department of Buses. Our design process is a 2-pronged process. We have twice-a-month design progress meetings. We also have focused design meetings with CPM's engineering chiefs and Department of Buses personnel to resolve any issues and upcoming milestones. For instance, we just had a meeting with our chief structural engineer and our geotechnical expert to discuss the pile foundation for the new depot. Parallel to this effort, we had pile testing for the foundation ongoing at the Mother Clara Hill. This parallel effort is required for us to keep in pace for the fabrication of the piles, which is currently ongoing. Next slide. As you are aware, this depot is surrounded by residential community on all sides. We have the Mother Clara Hill Task Force, which was started even before the demolition of the old depot. There are regular meetings held. This task force is a joint collaboration with the folks of the community and government relations. We just presented the noise and vibration monitoring information to them in January 2011 for the upcoming pile activities. Our relation with the community has been good so far, and we do hope to keep it like so. We've also informed them at that meeting of the upcoming events for the next 3 months. The contractor is also looking into local hiring in the area. Commissioning and testing and acceptance is one of the challenges we face in our projects. We understand that the contractor does not fully comprehend the amount of work involved in commissioning of our equipment. As a proactive measure during the pre-qualification stage, we asked the contractors to provide us their understanding of commissioning of a fire alarm system. We've also implemented the commissioning process right now at the start of the project. There are milestones set up during the construction schedule to monitor the commissioning and the construction work ongoing. Timely coordination of this job with the design-built entity, with the outside agencies and New York City Transit is very critical for our job. And what we plan to do is use an electronic data management system, Constructware, to keep everyone up to speed. Thank you.
Questions? Chuck?
To what extent have you been able to build into this plan a facility for the recovery and capture of contaminants, whether they be fuel or otherwise?
This project is a lead project. All the items we have taken, for example, we have low NOx fuel burners used, oxides of nitrogen fuels in the project. So our hope is not to have the contaminants at the lowest minimum possible.
May I suggest you may find use in going to the new sanitation garage on 56th Street. They have encountered exactly these problems. It's just about finished, but it's taken years to get it to that point as they bring the sanitation trucks up those ramps.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions, Doreen?
Darrell, you and I visited a depot in Queens that was relatively new, and I was appalled by the fact that it was unair conditioned, and we were there on a blistering hot day. And my understanding was that there are cost overruns that caused people to pull out air conditioning to save costs. I hope we'll not be doing anything like that to degrade the work environment for our workers. It was pretty awful. And I'm also happy to see the extraordinary steps we're taking to be a better neighbor to the community. I think getting those buses off the street is critically important.
In taking this role, I've met with Fred Smith on several occasions, and we talked about the resolution to Grand Avenue. That's the depot that you're talking about. And I think that you could sign it to lessons learned. So I believe that we shouldn't have those same problems in this new facility.
Other comments, questions? There is one other side to this project, which, again, we won't belabor here, but this is a design-build project. We haven't done very many design-build projects. We have had a lot of success recently on one of the Long Island Railroad projects, the Atlantic Avenue Viaduct, operating on a design-build basis. I'm actually quite encouraged that we're doing that. Obviously, I think it is one of the things, again, that this committee should keep an eye on. Not just because of the implications for this project, but because of the potential for other work that we may be doing and the ability to be able to move work both more quickly and more cost effectively, I hope. So it's worth watching. I'd also commend Fred and his team. This is a project, as you could see from the first picture that was up there, a depot that is literally in the middle of the community. I mean, there is no question about that. I've been up at the site myself. And they've been working hand in hand with the community every step along the way, straight down, and I don't think Sandra's here, but straight down to the questions of artwork and every other step of what we're dealing with. And I think it's a credit to the organization that they've been able to work with the community to be able to do this and to have their support for the way that we're handling it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Linda, is there anything you want to say on the commitments completions? I think the report is pretty straightforward. It actually generally has some pretty good news, although we're 2 months in, only 2 months in. I would ask for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. And I think we're moving on to the governance meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Thank you.